This course is called Pitching to Win, and it's all about how you persuade a client or a prospect client to give you their business when you are in a competition against all the companies that you regularly compete with. It's the persuasion business. It's something where we are seeking to get a client to back your judgment with their money, and you are having to make a presentation to them that will convince them that you have the right solution for them. Now, pitching is a craft, it's an art. It's a way of doing things that over and over and over again, we see bad habits creeping in that people do all the time. So if you look at your company and its track record in converting pitches when you've been competing for business in the open market, one of the things you must look at and measure is how many of those pitches that you make are you converting every year? Because unless you're converting between 60 and 80%, then you aren't doing it as well as you could. Now, another way of looking at pitching is the art of how not to come in second. And what I mean by that is so many times we go and talk to companies who are involved with making their case. They want to win the business, but they lose. What they do is they wait by the phone, having made their presentation. They get a call from the client that they pitched to last week. And the client says, just before I tell you the result and how we've arrived at that result, I'd just like to say a few things. I'd like to say, we really enjoyed your presentation last week. And I'd like to say that your team were really lovely, very nice people, seemed very bright. And we thought some of the ideas that you presented to us were extremely interesting. You know what the next word coming out of that client's mouth is, don't you? It's but I'm afraid this time you have come a very close second. And we all think that's okay and it's very sad, but never mind, we came a very close second. So we take the news and we go on to our team who worked really, really hard on this pitch and we say, guys, I've already just spoken to the client. I'm really sorry, but we came a very close second. We can hold our heads up high and we didn't disgrace ourselves. So next time, hopefully we'll get a better result. We didn't come second. We have to get out of this habit of telling ourselves to make ourselves feel better that we actually came second. We didn't. The client will then pick up the phone and say that to about another 5 companies that pitch for the business. And they will say that because they don't want to be horrible. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to make you feel even worse than you already do. So they're just going to try and make you feel a bit better about it and say, well, you know, you did really well. It was such a hard decision, but I'm afraid this time you didn't quite make it. So you came second. If you're going to get better, you've got to start with the truth, the proper diagnosis. And what happened is you lost. And losing hurts. And the next time you lose a pitch, instead of saying, oh, well, never mind, we did really well, we came second, I'd like you to close your eyes and think of this. A car driving off the top of your office building. Because that's what just happened. Because if you spent all that time trying to win a piece of business, and quite often a pitch can take anywhere between 1 week and it's 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks sometimes to get the whole thing to come to a final presentation. All that time, all that man hours, all the time that you add up, if you've been doing research or maybe traveling to go and try and look into the client's market, lots of meetings with the client, lots of phone call conversations, lots of emails, trying to just work out what the right answer is. If you add all of that time up together, you'll find that it's extremely expensive. And you'll have taken time away from clients who pay your bills every day to work on this piece of speculative pitching. So all of that added up can add up to an awful lot of money. And that's really what happens when we get a phone call from the client saying, I liked you people, I thought your ideas were interesting, but I'm afraid this time you come a very close second because you just drove a brand new car off the roof of your building. And we don't want to be doing that because that's just a crazy use of resource. So there must be better ways of doing it. And that is what this module is about. How do you win a pitch? How do you make sure when you're given the opportunity to try and win a piece of business, you win it? Often when you're invited to make a pitch, you will be invited to do so alongside 4 or 5 or maybe more of your competitors. And time and again, you'll find that clients who are receiving the pitches will talk about the fact that they want all of those companies to play on an even playing field. Now, the true art of being a great pitcher is you don't want to be playing on an even playing field. The most important thing when you're trying to win a piece of business is to tilt the playing field in the maximum amount it can be in your favour. You must seek unfair advantage wherever you possibly can. And this programme is all about giving yourself the maximum chance of converting business. Sometimes by taking shortcuts, sometimes by doing things that we know time and again will work and not doing the things that won't work. Because you don't have the time in the 4 or 5 weeks you've got for your pitch, or even less in some industries, to get it wrong. And yet time and time again, we see company after company after company saying that they take pitching really seriously and do it in a wholly amateur way. In fact, I would say that pitching is probably the last amateur endeavour left in business around the world. Everybody has professionalised their sales organisations, their logistics, they've professionalised their distribution network, they've professionalised the way their operations work. But the last thing that people ever pay any attention to is the chance to transform their business by winning an amazing client. Everybody says they spend a lot of time on it, but that time is spent inefficiently and very, very haphazardly. So pitching tends to be done in the wee small hours of the morning, or at any time when you're not working on existing clients, weekends, late evenings, early mornings, when you can get the team together because everyone's scattered to the four winds. And what happens? We do really, really badly. We turn up again and again and again, and we make our pitch. Hasn't been rehearsed. We've decided who's going to say what in the taxi over to the client. We haven't really thought about what the precise wording of each section is going to be. We're unclear about what we're trying to tell the client. And the client, big surprise, comes out absolutely befuddled by what on earth they've just seen. And clients everywhere see time and time again really amateur pitches that have been made that overrun, that aren't clear what you're actually trying to sell them, that don't express the problem or the solution in a particularly memorable fashion, are really rather dull to watch, very unengaging, don't really have much to recommend them, and just end up as being prosaic and dull. So on behalf of all clients everywhere, there must be a better way. There must be a way of engaging attention and making a compelling argument that gives you the maximum chance of winning a piece of business. And that is what all of this is about. And the place to start is by being professional in the way we treat pitching. Because, as I say, no one really does it properly. And if you want to do it properly, a good place to start is to look at other people who compete for a win. And that can quite often be in other competitive endeavours, like, for example, athletics. Now, if you think of a pitch, it has a very definite beginning, when the brief or the instruction is issued, and a very definite end, when you present your solution to that client's problem. Now, that's a bit like the 100 metres final of the Olympic Games. It's got a very definite beginning when the starter pistol goes, and it's got a very definite end at the finishing line. But there's an awful lot of things that happen both in the race and also before and leading up to the race and after the race, because all the athletes don't just stop dead on 100 metres. They run through the finishing line and they keep the momentum going. So we can learn from these people. We can learn from top athletes and from the 100 metres particularly as to how to do a really good pitch. Because if you think about it, when you make a pitch, you are given a start, and the start date is often when the client issues the instruction or the brief and asks you to start thinking about what you can do to help them. Now, you would never see a professional athlete turn up at the track, get down on their haunches in the starter blocks and just wait for the starter pistol to go, and then when it does go, they go, do you know what, I'm just going to stay here for a little while and relax. I'm going to let all the other guys run off and start their race. And yet, how many times have you been in the situation where the instruction or the brief has come in from the client, and that means the starter pistol has gone off in your pitch, but what we've decided to do is it's not really that urgent yet. We've got another 3 weeks before we're going to have to present. So what we'll do is we'll look at that in a few days' time. And that happens over and over again. And it's quite extraordinary, because if you do wait for the starter pistol to go and you don't get straight out of the blocks immediately and get your pitch underway, you will lose. Simple as that. It just can't make up the time once that starter pistol has gone, because if you're not starting, one of your competitors will do. And if they've got a full head start on you. You won't ever make up that ground. So pitching is like athletics. It is like the 100 meters. And just like the 100 meters, you have to train for it. You have to rehearse it. You have to warm up for it. You have to make sure that your whole team is marshaled on the effort it's going to take to deliver maximum performance when you stand up in that presentation. And that means doing things like athletes do. It means having the right equipment. It means making sure you're warmed up when you present. It means making sure that you are well trained. Usain Bolt and top athletes have run the 100 meters in their training hundreds of thousands of times to make sure that their performance is optimized. How many of us stand up when we do a pitch and it's cobbled together at the last minute? We stand up, we expect to be great because we're very professional. And actually what turns out is a very standard, boring pitch that isn't going to engage anyone for any length of period of time because we just haven't put the effort in. We haven't done the things that we know will much, much more enhance your chance of victory. We've just turned up and done it because that's the way we always do it. And we're busy people anyway, so why should we have to have time to rehearse? It's not good enough. It really isn't. Pitching is like the 100 meters. It has to be done really, really well, meticulous detail, proper preparation, and run a very, very precise race that doesn't stop the moment you hit the finishing line. It carries on because that's the only way you can build enough momentum to make sure you're carried through the finishing tape and you continue in dialogue with your client and you make sure that until the ink is dry on the contract, you keep going until you've secured that business. We speak to a lot of clients all the time, people who see pitches and know how to decide what they want and who the right partner is. Now, what clients basically want is the same wherever you are in the world or whatever profession you happen to work in. Clients want a group of people who will understand them as people, who will understand their business and how it ticks and what makes money for them, who will understand what's needed and will also be enjoyable to work with, and will be able to solve their problem. Now, for most people, when they're doing a pitch, the thing that will actually spend most of their time doing is solving the client's problem. Makes perfect sense because, of course, they've given you a brief or an instruction. You know what you're trying to do, and that's what you're good at. That's why you're in your chosen field of business. So you inevitably spend all your time coming up with the solution to the client's problem. Unfortunately, that doesn't win pitches. That's kind of the price of being in business. You must be good at what you do because if you're not, you wouldn't really survive. But so are your competitors. They're all the same. They all have good ideas. They all have clever expertise. They're all technically very competent at what they do. So you need something more than that to differentiate yourself when you pitch, because if you don't, you'll just be an also-ran. So what is it that wins pitches? Well, there are basically 8 different ingredients. And we're going to cover each of those in a bit of detail because if you do all 8 of them without fail every time you have a major pitch, you will make a massive, massive difference to the conversion rate you get and how much business you bring in to your business. So you need to do these things with merciless discipline. And most of the time when we see somebody who hasn't won a pitch, when they've got that phone call from the client saying, I'm sorry, you've come a very close second, it's always because they haven't adhered to these 8 core principles. So that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the course. The first of the 8 is organisation and logistics. It is absolutely imperative, as we've already talked about, when you make the analogy of the 100 meters race, it is so vital that you get a good, fast start. You need to get out of the starter blocks absolutely straight away, because if you don't, your competitors will do. And if they do, you will never make up the time and you will just waste 3 or 4 weeks of your life trying to catch up. So all good pitching companies have one basic characteristic in common, and that is they are phenomenally well organised. Now, what does that mean in practical terms? Well, if you're going to be really, really good and get out of the starter blocks fast, what you need to do is have systems in place that mean it's easy to get started quickly. That means things like diary management has to be meticulous. You have to make sure that if you've only got 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to do the pitch, every single day there is a meeting for the whole team, or at least the core team, and that happens without fail. So often pitches get unstuck because people just layer excuse after excuse on each other. They say, oh, I'm sorry, we're a bit busy, we can't really meet for the first few days. And then they have sporadic meetings, maybe every 3 days. And bit by bit, you are losing momentum to those of your competitors who are meeting religiously without fail every day and moving the course of their pitch to the ineluctable conclusion of a victory. So if you're not meeting every day, if you're not organised and your diary management is poor, you will lose. Simple as that. So it starts with getting in meetings for the team and also getting face time with the client, because quite frankly, if you're not meeting with the client, you aren't going to win. Now, there are some clients, like public sector clients, where it's very, very difficult to get any face time with that client. Try and find a way. Try and find a way round it, over it, under it, but try and think entrepreneurially about how can we get to meet the client? Because if you don't get to meet the client, your competitor somehow will find a way. And if they find a way, you will lose, because they will find out more about what that client wants and find out what it's going to take to win. And the client will also start building a relationship with them. And as we all know, relationships are at the core of what a business is wanting when it starts to look for new people to help it. So you've got to be organised. You've got to get face time with the client. You've got to plan in your rehearsal time, because you'll come back to that at the end. You need to make more time available so that what you do is well thought through and planned, so you don't get any nasty surprises and you don't run out of time before the actual final pitch to actually have a run through, not once, not twice, but 3 times, so that your presentation is absolutely pitch perfect. So you need to be organised. You need somebody who is also going to be the person who makes the deadlines work and makes it happen. Someone who cracks the whip and makes sure that this pitch is your company's #1 priority, because if they don't do that, something else will come along and hijack it. And if that happens, you'll lose. The second thing that is a golden rule of winning your pitch is to know the audience. Now that means knowing the clients that you are pitching to. You need to find out absolutely everything about who they are, what their position is, what politics are going on in their boardroom, what makes them tick as people. You need to know what sort of personality style they might have. And we have another course, which is personality profiles, which will help you understand the 4 different basic types of people and how to build rapport with them better. And you kind of need to know that when you're pitching, because if you put your pitch in the wrong language, or if you put it in the wrong phraseology, or you behave in a way that the people at the client end don't find engaging or helpful, you're not going to win your pitch. So it's really important to try and understand and get under the skin of the sort of client that you're dealing with. Now, on your screen at the moment, you will see a picture of an animal. But you may not know what sort of animal it is. Is it a duck or is it a goose? Well, for many of you, you won't actually care whether it's a duck or a goose, but this really does matter. It's terribly important to understand the nature of the beast that you are pitching to. And the people who tend to understand it and speak the language of that particular beast tend to win more often. So it's really important to try and find out what you're dealing with. And the best way to find out whether or not something is a duck or a goose is to ask it questions, to kick it, to find out what sort of noise it makes. So asking questions of your client and trying to understand the answers and listening to the way that that client engages with you and talks about the issues they've got is a huge part of the battle of trying to win their hearts and minds. Because it's not just the content of what they're saying, it's also the way they express themselves that gives you clues as to not just what they want, but also the way they want it delivered, the language they want it put in, the things that they find important. And if you try and make that work, you will win more often. And it's no coincidence that all the pitches that we've ever been involved with, where we've helped our clients win an engagement with another client, It's always been about spending maximum face time with the client so that you can ask the right question and get them talking. And if you understand them better than your competitors, you have just upped your chances of winning massively, because people buy people they like, and they tend to like people who are like them. So if you get lots of face time with your client, you can start to build a relationship. And in business, and in pitching in particularly, you tend to find that favourability comes from familiarity. So the longer you are with them, especially if your competitors can't get to see them, you're already in business, you're already building a relationship. And that is the secret of great pitching, is to do that with absolute determination and do it as often as you possibly can over the course of your pitch. And if you do that, you will most likely win. So why do you have to spend time getting to know the client? Well, because all pitches are different, all clients are different. And even if the personality styles just group people into 4 basic typologies, you're still dealing with individuals. So you still have to find out what makes that person tick. And if you spend time with them, then the chances are you can ask them questions that will get them to unlock what they want. And you'll be able to ask them questions that clarify the instruction or the brief or the mandate that you've been given. Because most of the time, what's written down on the piece of paper you're given that is running the pitch is only half the story. The rest of it is locked up in the client's mind. So you need to find out what's important to them, what their theories about the problem that they've got are, what they've tried before, what hasn't worked, what might work. You want to find out how open to ideas they are. You want to find out what language they speak. Do they speak short, sharp, clipped sentences or very long, elaborate answers? Because that might give you an indication as the sort of pitch you might need to make to them. You need to ask them questions about what excites them, what makes them worried, what keeps them up at night. You need to ask them questions about what companies they just love working with and what companies and the behaviours that those companies have really turn them off. And if you do that, you will find out how you need to behave, not just when you've won the business, but also during the pitch process. So spending time with clients allows you to get to know them and them to get to know you. And if you do that really, really well, by the time you stand up and make your case, you'll have built a good, solid relationship and they will have an expectation of what you are like. And where we will advise clients when they're doing their pitches, we always seek to make sure that they uniquely build rapport with the clients that they're pitching to, so that there's a really good, strong relationship to build on when they make their final presentation. And if you meet that client a lot, you will find out that they will steer you towards the answer that they require. And that is a lot of the battle, because once you know what the client wants, you will be able to deliver it to them. And once you've won their business, you can probably help them with what they really need. Because a pitch, let's face it, is a game. It's a way that you can prove to them that you are righter than anybody else to do business with them. So you're feeling your way to being the right partner for them. And that is about listening. It's about asking the right questions, and it's about building a relationship and rapport as you go through the process. So when you finally stand up for your pitch, it is a beautiful summation, a nice full stop to everything that's gone before. So it's a way of just putting the cap on the relationship that you've built. And it should be an absolutely logical conclusion to what they want and have told you they want during the process of your 4-week build up to that final pitch. Number 3, solving the problem. Now, this is not something I want to dwell on because, quite frankly, this is what you're good at. This is the bit where, if you're not very careful, you will spend all of your time during the pitch process crafting a solution to the client's problem and honing it, buffing it, polishing it, making it absolutely beautiful and expressed in the best way you possibly can. There's nothing wrong with that except for one crucial thing, which is, by and large, most companies that we help when they're doing a pitch automatically spend so much time coming up with the solving of the problem, they don't really allow any time to do anything else. And if you just focus on the problem is you're leaving yourself vulnerable to those companies that recognize that solving the problem isn't the only way of winning a pitch. In fact, it's one of the smaller ways of winning a pitch. Yes, you're going to have to come up with a solution that the client likes. But most of the time, clients are buying more than just a solution. They're buying a team. They're buying a group of people they feel get their business, and really, really want to help them and share their ambition for what that company is trying to achieve. So by all means, come up with the solution. Our plea to you would be, for goodness sakes, stop spending all the available time you've got in the pitch process on just doing that. You need to concertina that effort into the front half of the time you've got available. Really, really start well. So if you've done rule number 1, which is to be organised and have your logistics sorted out, you will have got together within 24 hours of that client's instruction coming in. And if you've done that and you've got your top talent round the table, you will have probably found 70 to 80% of the problem and what the solution might be. And if you've done that, you have made a massive time saving. And you need that because you don't want to be coming up with and polishing your solution right up until the day before the pitch. What you need to be doing is settling your argument, settling your solution, so that you can spend 2/3 of the time coming up with the original thinking of how you will solve it, and then a third, minimum a third, coming up with how you will present that solution in a way that makes it compelling, urgent, and buyable. And if you do that, you will get the balance right. So if you want to start the solution process quicker, you need to make sure you marshal your resources within 24 hours. You get top talent within your organisation. Even if they're not working on the pitch, you need their input. You need to hear what they've got to say about the client's problem. Then you can start honing it, buffing it, researching it, just refining it over the course of the next few weeks. And then once you've done that, you need a cut-off point where you go, and that is our solution. And we are not going to keep tinkering with it, playing with it. We're just going to spend our time now working out how to present it in the most compelling and urgent manner. Rule number 4, practice. It's a terrible tragedy, as far as we can see, that most people, when they run a pitch, don't ever bother to practice. Now, going back to the analogy of the 100-metre sprint runner, you wouldn't ever find any of the top athletes turning up without having done any practice. And they certainly wouldn't turn up to do a race without having warmed up, taken off their tracksuit, done a few laps, just made sure their muscle groups were working, made sure that every single part of their body was finely tuned to deliver a brilliant presentation. They would have done loads and loads of laps to make sure they were warmed up. They would have done loads of mental preparation to make sure they were locked on to what they were trying to do and trying to achieve. We don't do that. In pitching, we just tend to sort of bundle up and hope for the best. You need to practice. You need to practice at least 3 full rehearsals. Why 3? Because the first one is never really a rehearsal. It's just a cut and paste. We start looking at all the charts, looking at the argument, taking out stuff we think is superfluous, adding in new stuff, and everyone walks away after 2 or 3 hours and goes, great rehearsal. That wasn't a rehearsal, that was just getting the presentation to make sense. So the first rehearsal is just making things work and get in order, getting our thinking in order. Second rehearsal is where you start to get individual presenters doing the right thing, knowing their material, being able to deliver it in a coherent way. Now that's all well and good, but that will just end up with a presentation that has lots of good individuals. And what you're trying to do is be more than that. You're trying to be a team of people, a group of people that the client falls in love with, who speak a lot of sense to that client's problems and issues. So in order to do that, you need a third rehearsal. And the third rehearsal is where the magic happens. That's where you start to build in all the small little things that make a presentation a performance. Not just a presentation, but it comes alive as a piece of showmanship, as a piece of theatre. Because all pitches need to engage both the heart and the mind. And the place where you get to do that at that sort of level is where you do your third rehearsal. You do 3 because the third one is where you start to get all the little clues that the client is looking for, that you are a team, which is our 5th golden rule. Fifth golden rule. You need to look like a team. They want to fall in love with you. And when they do, they see the chemistry between you and your colleagues. And that is what they buy. That is what they want, because they want people who spark off each other, who can make 2 + 2 = 5. Because that is what's so compelling to them. That's where they're going to get brilliant value. And to look like a team, you need to rehearse things like your handovers. You do not want to be in a situation where when you stand up and you make your presentation, you then hand over to somebody in a really boring, ploddy way. You don't want to be hearing, "Hello, I've just finished my piece of presentation. I would now like to hand over to my colleague," whose name you don't know because you've only been in the room once before, "and they're going to tell you about the way we researched this, or the instruction that we've had before, or a case study, or whatever it is." It's so boring. It's such a wasted opportunity. You must make sure that when you are rehearsing your handovers, they are slick and fast, and they look like the person knew their cue and comes steaming in with the bit that they're doing that changes the pace and the timbre of the presentation. You need to rehearse your handovers. You need to rehearse your opening and your ending. You need to make sure that these are compelling and urgent and engaging from the moment you start. You do not want to have standard beginnings and endings. And standard beginnings are things like, "Thank you so much for having us. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's such an honour for us to present to you. We're very glad. We've enjoyed the process. It's been very, very helpful. Thank you so much for all your involvement." Blah, 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 blah. You will never stand out. You will never be different if you just present that sort of standard rubbish that gets trotted out again and again and again. Great rehearsal creates great performances, and great performances are the thing that will stand you way ahead of your competitors when you are doing a pitch. So practice and look like a team. And if you do both of those things, you're giving yourself a massive advantage in the pitch process. Part 6, great presentations. You spent weeks, maybe even months, coming out with the right solution to the client's problem. You've done all your research, you've done all the background material, you've been on site visits, you've done all the things that the client might rightfully expect you to have delivered in order to come up with a very compelling presentation on the right solution for that client's problem. Now, great presentations need crafting. And one of the things that you need to remember is, we've talked about rehearsal. You must rehearse 3 times. And if you do that, you will be so familiar with your material and with the handovers and with the opening and then with the beginning and with the middle section, then you will be able to loosen up your performance. And that's so important, because that's the thing that engages other human beings. People buy people. They don't buy charts. And yet so many times we see companies slaving away about their PowerPoint charts and what they're going to write on the charts, and everything that's put on the charts. There's always too much material, too many words, too many numbers, too many graphs, too many pictures, too many all sorts of things, all crammed onto 1 or 2 slides that then get talked over, and with the person who's presenting them with their back to the audience because they're reading off the charts. This is just an absolutely useless way of conducting a presentation. Presentations need to come alive, which means you as a performer need to come alive, which means you need to be relaxed. And if you're relaxed, you can smile. And smiling signals great confidence. People tend to react very, very positively to people who can smile, who are warm and engaging. People who are nervous, people who haven't rehearsed, people who stand up and they don't really know their material, is painful to watch, because they look it. They look like they're full of trepidation, they don't have confidence, they're low energy. And if people have to sit through presentation after presentation that's like that, they lose faith and they just stop listening. So to be fully engaging and engaged, you need to make sure you're well rehearsed, relaxed, warmed up, you smile, you know your material, and you've anticipated all the things the client will be worrying about so that you can make sure you address them. The other thing about great presentations is they have a very, very disciplined and well-edited approach to the content that is presented. What do I mean by that? Most pitches throw everything, including the kitchen sink, in them. So they're too long, they're unrehearsed, so they overrun. There isn't enough time to get through everything, so things get skipped over and glossed over. And people aren't rehearsed, so they tend to talk for too long about whatever subject they're supposed to be talking about. And it just becomes a very, very messy occasion. But a really good presentation, a really great presentation, is incredibly powerful. it can really, really make the difference to bringing an idea alive. And quite often you will find that instead of having everything in there, including the kitchen sink, they are very focused on one or two core messages that they come back to and repeat again and again and again. Now, quite often I know that you will have to present where you are trying to get through a lot of material, but that is no excuse. Your job as the editor, as the person putting together the presentation, is to make sure that every single piece of information that you tell the client absolutely is understood and is said in a very compelling way. If you watch any politician making a presentation, you will find that they come back to core themes again and again and again, and they reiterate what they're saying. The old adage of say what you've come to say it, and then say what you've said is never more true than in pitch presentations. They need a good map. They need to tell people what to expect with their time. You need to tell them the big important thing that you're there to tell them. Then you get into the detail. Then you remind them of what it is that you've told them, the important stuff. Then you conclude and you leave your presentation with a very memorable, pithy ending. That is how to deliver a great presentation. So less charts, please. More personality, more engagement, more rehearsal, more thought, more editing, less stuff. And if you think of a great presentation as one particular way, then in a visual way, imagine being a person who is being thrown lots of sweets and they're all up in the air and you're being asked to catch as many as you can. The truth of the matter is you'll probably only catch one, maximum two. How much better to get one sweet and throw it to your audience so they have the maximum chance of getting it. That is like a presentation. A really good presentation throws one piece of information and does it in a way that people get it. Most bad presentations throw lots of information in the air and the client is sitting there thinking, I can't make head nor tail of this. It doesn't make any sense to me. So be edited, and also make sure you present in your rehearsal, to get it right, to somebody who is a third-party objective audience. Not the client, but somebody who works on your behalf but doesn't have anything to do with the pitch, because they will point out the logical flaws and gaps in your presentation, and they will also point out to all the presenters how they're coming across and how to flex their behaviour, how to flex their performance to make it work better. And that's really, really crucial, because you need that objective critiquing. And if you have that, then you will walk into the final pitch presentation ready, drilled, warmed up, and to perform the most brilliant performance of your life. One of the things you need to do when you do a truly good presentation is you need not just to focus on your content and on how you answer questions, but you need to think about the environment, the atmosphere you're creating when you are with that client. And that means you need to know where you're going to be presenting. Are you at their offices, or are you in an off-site, or are you at your offices? And if you are playing away, if you are playing at the client's offices or in an unfamiliar location, you need to find out everything you can about that location, where the windows are, where the natural light is, what the temperature is, can you control the temperature, what the shape of the table is, where will the chairs be, who will sit in what particular formation, how big is the room, how easy to access is the room, what's the IT like in that room, where are the power sockets. Why do you need to know all of that? Because you need to be a control freak when you are doing a pitch. You need to try and seek to make sure you control every aspect of the client's experience that you possibly can when you're making your pitch presentation. And by doing that, you will give your team the best possible chance to shine. So you need to be obsessed with the detail of all of these things so that you know that if you're showing certain things, you can show them in the best light. You can make sure the equipment works. And if the equipment doesn't work at the last minute, what have you got as backup? What happens if plan A doesn't go according to plan? Where's your plan B? You need to think about the environment in which the client walks into if they're coming to your offices. You need to make sure that everything that they experience is contributing to the impression you are trying to give them. You do not want to leave any hostages to fortune. So that means you make sure that security guards are well briefed, that the client is pre-signed in, that they don't have a horrible experience at security and are made to feel unwelcome, that the signage is clear, that they are chaperoned all the way through the company so that you make sure the experience they have is positive and good and dynamic, not left to chance. So you need to be a control freak, and you need to think about this pitch as an entire performance where you are not just looking at what happens in the auditorium, you are also thinking about the entire experience of the theatre. So do think about all of that, because you need to be absolutely sure that when the client walks out of your building or when you walk out of their building, nothing has detracted from the image and impression and content of what you are trying to say. One of the things you need to do when you're in rehearsal is not just focus on the content of your presentation, but also to think about the questions that the clients might ask you when you've made your presentation. And clearly, the Q&A part of any presentation is where the clients get the chance to interrogate you, to make sure you've understood their issues, to make sure they can find out the thinking that you've got in a bit more detail about the things you've said as the solution to their problem. Clients love Q&A because it's a chance for them not just to find out more about the content, but also to put you as a team under pressure. And what they're looking for is what the army, when they're recruiting for young officers, would say is grace under pressure. So they're looking for how cool your head is when you are under fire. The way you handle Q&A is really, really important, because Q&A is, as I say, what the client really enjoys, and it's a chance for you to shine. Most people dread it because it means you have to think on your feet and you're not quite sure what they're going to ask you, and it might come up with a horrible question that you have no idea how you're going to answer it. So there are a few golden rules about questioning and Q&A. The first one is, in your rehearsal, try and brainstorm the nastiest questions that the clients could ask you. Anticipate what it is that you're going to get asked. You may not get all of them, but you need to go through the discipline of asking yourself, right, what is the client going to ask us, and what is the answer to that question? And then who in our team is going to make sure that that answer is given? Because there'll be some people who are better at answering one type of question and others who might have the expertise to answer a different type of question. So you need to work out who's going to ask it, what's it going to be, and who's going to answer it, and what are they going to say. And if you go through that discipline, that's a really, really valuable thing to do, because when you get asked questions, you will then shine. And that's one of the ways that you differentiate yourself from your competitors who have not thought about it and haven't really worked out how they're going to tell the client the answer to those questions. So once you've done that, you also need to think about what sort of question you're going to get asked, and if one of your team members has been assigned to answer that question and then does answer it, but one of your other team members doesn't think that they've answered it as well as it could have been answered, what do you do then? Well, we have a golden rule, which is one other person from your team is allowed a supplementary answer. But after that, everyone in the team, however much they may want to add to the answer that has already been given, cannot. And the reason for that is because if everybody on the team then starts chipping away at that question and answering it in their own way, the client is sitting there thinking, who's in charge here? What is going on? It just looks chaotic, and it looks like you haven't really got a coherent answer. So golden rule is one chip shot. You're only allowed one supplementary answer to the main answer that you've agreed is going to be given. And that way you retain formation and you retain focus and you retain discipline. And if you do that, you will look a lot better. So just be very disciplined about it. The other golden rule about Q&A is have somebody who fields all the questions for your team and then can assign to the person who has been pre-allocated to answer that question. And again, that's a way of marshalling information. And if the client asks you the most horrendous question that none of you have anticipated, what do you do then? Well, that's where the person who's fielding all the questions comes into their own. They must step forward, ask the client if they could repeat the question, or maybe repeat the question back to the client. And what you're really doing is buying time for your team to try and think of what the answer might be. So by buying time, you then turn around to your team and you say, guys, has anyone got any answers for that question? Maybe one of your colleagues can step forward and maybe give a good chance of an answer. But if it is a real horrible question and you don't have the answer, be honest. Don't try and blag it. Do be honest, do take it on the chin and say, that's a very good question. We have not thought of that, and we will go away and we will think about it and we will come back to you with a more comprehensive answer when we can. Seventh golden rule. keep going. We talked about the 100 metres race and the fact that all the athletes don't just stop dead on 100 metres. They run for many, many metres afterwards because the momentum that they've built keeps them going. In a pitch, that's also true. Just because you've made your presentation, that's just probably half the story. Now the clients got really worried because they got the responsibility of making up their mind about which of the different people that have pitched for their business they are going to appoint. Now, quite often you can find that pitches get lost just in the moment after the final presentation has been made. Why is that? Because quite a lot of companies make their pitch and then take their foot off the accelerator. They think, wow, well, that's us done. And now I can go back and do my day job and look after my existing clients and get on with running my company and whatever it is that might distract them. Really, really good professional pitchers don't do that. What they do is they go back immediately after the presentation and they work out, how did it go? What happened? What did we do well? What didn't we do well? What will they ask us, or what have they asked us in the Q&A where we didn't perform as well as we should? What other questions are they seeming to be worried about? How do we answer those questions? How do we put their mind at rest? How can we get back in touch with them in a way that means we keep the momentum going and we don't give them any excuse to exclude us from the final selection? You need to be obsessive about keeping going. This is when you use any of the contacts that you might have made during the entire pitch process, either with the client or with people that can influence and know the client. This is when you activate them. This is when you ring them up and say, we made our presentation. Have you heard anything? Did we learn anything? We were a bit worried that they might be concerned about this. Do you think that's an issue that they might be concerned about? What would you do if you were us? How can we stay engaged with them? Just constantly seek to be helpful to that client whilst they're going through their deliberations, whilst they are trying to work out how to tease apart all the presentations they've seen and how to make their final choice. This is the point at which you might be negotiating with them on fees. This is the point where they might test you on price. This is the point where they might be pushing back or asking you for more work or to elaborate on particular things. The point of this stage is don't lose focus, don't lose momentum. Do whatever you can to try and fully engage with the client. Don't be a nuisance, don't be a pain, don't be all over them just for the sake of it, but try to make sure they understand you are acting out of the best motives, which is to help. Try and continually try and help them so that when they make their decision, they have not just seen your presentation, but they have seen the way you behave, the way you advise, the way you're helpful, the way you try hard, the way you will try hard on their behalf in the future. And if you do that, you will add rather than detract from the pitch that you have made. So please, golden rule number 7, keep going. The 8th and final golden rule, feedback. One of the great tragedies of pitching and one of the great things that makes us weep is people don't assiduously collect feedback from clients when they make a pitch. Quite often, if they do, it's done in a half-hearted way, and it's quite often collected by the people who made the pitch, who have a vested interest in getting that feedback and making it as positive as they possibly can. Now, feedback needs to be collected whether you win or whether you lose. If you win, it's important to get the feedback because you need to find out what did we do well and what maybe could we have done a little bit better. And the client will give you that feedback, and then that allows you to improve the next time you make a pitch to someone else. It's always good to be debriefed by a client. Anyone who's in a high performance area, from the Red Arrows, the Formation RAF crack pilot team, right the way through to anyone who's trying to run a team, you need to debrief after a performance. Most of us just go off the pitch and then just go and have a few beers. Don't do that. Go and find out, what do we do right? What do we need to improve? And if you do that, you will make sure that continually you always enhance your performance. But what if you lost? What do you do then? Well, the most important thing is don't delude yourselves. The client will be nice to you when they ring you up and tell you that, sadly, this time you've come a very close second. Don't believe it, because if you try and ask them for feedback then and there, all they'll do is be nice to you. And that's useless because they'll just say platitudinous things that won't add to your pool of expertise and they won't let you learn. But if you do take the news gracefully and you say, well, I tell you what, I'm very disappointed to hear that we didn't win. obviously that's a great shame. Please can we come and see you in 3 or 4 weeks and just try and understand a little bit more from your perspective about what we didn't do as well as we could, so we can learn. No client will turn you down with that opportunity, and the reason you go back in 3 or 4 weeks is because by then they will become objective and they will give you proper, honest, truthful feedback, warts and all, and that is what you need. And the person who goes to get that meeting, who goes to collect that feedback, is someone senior in your organisation who has nothing to do with the pitch. And the reason that's so important is because you need someone who really listens to what the client says, really asks the tough questions, and really can hear what is being said. And the problem with sending somebody who worked on the pitch is they'll just hear what they want to hear, and they will want to make themselves and their team feel better. And that's a bit like marking your own homework. It's no use to anyone because it tends to lead people to cheat themselves. And if you do that, you're just being deluded. So get your feedback. It's really, really important. And that way, every pitch is an opportunity to get better and better and better. And like any athlete, any high performance individual or team, that is the thing that creates momentum to win. So you want all of those tiny little incremental benefits to come by asking for feedback and making sure you not just get it, but you also act upon it. Finally, in conclusion on pitching to win, we'd just like to tell you a little story about somebody who exemplifies everything we've talked about. He's a historical figure that is a real personal hero of mine, Alexander the Great. Now, Alexander the Great died at the age of 32, having conquered the entire known world at the time. Now, he was a very, very ambitious person who never ever in his entire military career lost a single battle. Now, if you think of pitching as being a very, very competitive, cutthroat business, you could put it in terms that Alexander never really lost a pitch. He was a very assiduous pitcher for new territory, for new conquests. Alexander did it right. What Alexander did is he didn't play by other people's rules. He wrote his own rules. He always sought, like any entrepreneur, to find an uneven advantage that would give him some form of better perspective, better chance of winning over his competitors. And that could be anything from based on observation through to understanding the terrain better, to working his troops harder, to just being cleverer. And what Alexander often did is he found a different way of doing things. And that is what really good pitchers do. An example of that is the story of the Gordian knot. Now, the Gordian knot was a place in Asia Minor. It was in the city of Gordian. And it was said that there was a knot that was so intricate, so big, so tightly bound together that no man could separate it. And it was said that any man that did would go on to be the ruler of the world. Well, Alexander was a pretty ambitious man, and he did want actually to be the ruler of the world. So he marched his army of some 70,000 troops to the city of Gordian, had the knot brought before him, and for a little bit, he tussled with it, he played with it, he tried to pull it apart, tried to separate it, but it wouldn't work. So Alexander, being Alexander, doing it the way only Alexander could do it, he pulled out his sword and with one mighty swipe, cut the ropes in two and broke the knot. Technically, he did separate them. Some people would say that's cheating. Some people would say that that's not really playing by the rules of the game. But Alexander understood there are no rules to the game. You make your own rules. And if you make your own luck by being disciplined, focused, and a bit lateral, you will, like Alexander, weep for there are no more worlds to conquer. And that is what we want for you when you're doing your pitches.